"Till death do us part," are words that sound like a promise of eternal happiness at a wedding. But for the protagonists of today's video, they became a literal and horrific ending right in the middle of the celebration. Imagine the day you've been preparing for years. A white dress, hundreds of guests, and cameras capturing every smile. But in an instant, everything turns into a forensic investigation zone. Today, we will analyze 7 cases when weddings became the scene of a tragedy caught on film. Fasten your seatbelts. We are starting a chronicle of the happiest days that have become the last. May 2017 in the suburbs of Austin, Texas, was stifling. For 24-year-old Sarah Miller, it was supposed to be a day of triumph. As a designer, she had turned her own wedding at the Silver Oak Ranch into a work of art. The main decoration was a huge white tent, where hundreds of custom garlands with Edison lamps wrapped around metal supports, creating the effect of a starry sky. But it was this desire for perfect aesthetics that proved fatal. Due to a lack of budget, the installation was carried out by handymen who secured the cables to steel beams with ordinary metal clamps, damaging the thin insulation of the wires. The ceremony started perfectly, but at 18, the sky darkened dramatically. A sudden Texas squall brought a tropical downpour that turned the lawn under the tent into a swamp in minutes. The water washed away the poles, and one of the heavy flower arrangements began to slide. Sarah, not wanting the decor to be ruined, rushed to the rack. Her silk shoes were completely wet, creating the perfect grounding. As soon as she touched the conductive metal, the electrical circuit closed. What the guests' cameras captured was terrifying. Sarah didn't scream. The current caused an instant spasm of her diaphragm and arm muscles. She was literally welded to the counter, frozen in a tense pose with her eyes wide open. Her fiancé, Mark, rushed to her side, but one of the guests, former police officer Thomas, knocked him down. "Don't touch her! She's electrocuted!" This saved Mark's life, but Sarah remained under the effect of the discharge for another 20 seconds until the staff turned off the generator. Sarah fell to the grass like a broken doll. Despite prolonged resuscitation, she could not be saved. The powerful discharge caused instant cardiac arrest and thermal damage to her organs. The investigation later revealed that the garlands were intended for indoor use only, and the lack of grounding turned the tent into an electrical trap. The last frames of the wedding video captured the lights of the starry sky going out, plunging Sarah's happiest day into silence and darkness forever. August 2019 in Seattle was warm and calm. For 32-year-old David Evans, a lead software architect, this day was supposed to be the pinnacle of his life plan. He was getting married to Anna in a loft overlooking Elliott Bay. David was a man of algorithms, but he had one fatal vulnerability: a severe peanut allergy. Even a microscopic dose of the protein was a death sentence for him. Preparations for the wedding lasted a year and a half. The catering company Elite Flavors received a contract with a 5-page safety appendix. David checked the kitchen 3 times, demanding guarantees that the room would be sterile on the day of the cake. He was promised complete safety, but the human factor was stronger than legal obligations. Around 9 in the evening, it was time to cut the 4-tiered wedding cake. The cameramen's cameras moved smoothly toward the newlyweds, capturing every smile. Anna broke off a piece of delicate sponge cake and brought it to her husband's lips. David ate it, unaware that due to a supplier's mistake, the pastry chef had used an extract that was a mixture of nut oils. The tired staff did not check the fine print on the label. The reaction began 40 seconds later. David's smile disappeared, his face began to swell rapidly, and his eyes were bloodshot. "Nuts," he wheezed out before the swelling in his larynx completely blocked his breathing. David fell to the floor, knocking over the decor, convulsing from anaphylactic shock in front of hundreds of guests. Anna stuck an epinephrine syringe into his thigh, but the reaction was too aggressive. Professional cameras captured the agony. the bride in a white dress sobbing over her husband while doctors among the guests tried to give him indirect heart massage. Paramedics performed an emergency conicotomy right on the floor of the banquet hall, but due to prolonged hypoxia, David's brain was no longer functioning. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. An examination confirmed that the dose of the allergen in the cake was critical. The company was closed, but it did not bring David's life back. The last shot of the wedding video captured an abandoned silver fork on the table among the spilled champagne, a mute witness to how one drop of the extract destroyed a perfect life. January 2012 in Vermont was harsh even by local standards. The blizzards did not subside for weeks, turning the mountains into an impenetrable white desert. This was the atmosphere Elena Thorne chose for her wedding. She dreamed of a cozy winter fairy tale in an isolated hunting lodge located on the very edge of a national forest. The lodge was built in the early 20th century, with massive pine beams, stone fireplaces, and a complete lack of civilization within a 10-kilometer radius. However, what was supposed to be a cozy refuge for a family became the scene of a quiet tragedy that no one could notice in time. The main character of the holiday, in addition to the newlyweds, was Elena's father, 60-year-old Robert Thorne. He was the soul of the company, a man who adored his daughter and spared no expense for her perfect wedding. On the day of the ceremony, the temperature dropped to 25 degrees, and the snowfall intensified so much that the access road to the estate was completely covered. A power line breakdown caused a blackout in the entire area. To keep the party going, the lodge staff started up the backup diesel generator located in the maintenance room under the guest wing. This was standard procedure, but no one had taken into account the intensity of the storm. While candles were burning in the main hall, laughter was heard, and guests were toasting the couple's health. A real storm was raging outside. The snow falling at an angle completely blocked the generator's exhaust vent in a matter of hours. Carbon monoxide, CO, began to accumulate inside the technical floor. CO is called the silent killer because it is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. It doesn't cause coughing or suffocation. It simply replaces oxygen in the blood, making the victim feel slightly drowsy. Robert Thorne, who had danced a lot and made a long emotional speech, felt tired around 11 in the evening. He attributed it to age, alcohol, and excitement. "I'm going to go get some rest," he said to Elena, kissing her gently on the cheek. "Wake me up for the birthday cake." He went upstairs to his room, located directly above where the generator was running. Because the old wood of the building had micro cracks and the ventilation system was faulty, the gas concentration in his room reached a critical level within an hour. Robert lay down on the bed, still wearing his birthday jacket, and fell asleep instantly. The carbon monoxide gradually displaced oxygen from his system, plunging him into a deep coma. If someone had come to see him at that moment, Robert would have looked quite calm, perhaps even with a slight blush on his face, a specific sign of carbon monoxide poisoning. But the party downstairs was just getting going, and the music was drowning out any possibility of hearing any warning signs. Elena found Robert's body herself at 1 in the morning. When she went into the room to call her father for cake, she was struck by the unnatural silence. She tried to wake him up, first jokingly, and then with growing panic. Only when she felt lightheaded herself, and her own camera, which she was using to film the backstage of the wedding, recorded her scream, did the staff realize that something was wrong. Medical care was impossible. Ambulances couldn't get through 2-meter-high snowdrifts, and helicopters couldn't fly because of the storm. For 6 hours, the guests and the bride stayed in the lodge with their father's body, waiting for dawn. A forensic examination later determined that Robert died 30 minutes after he went to bed. The wedding video ends with footage of a snowy mansion with a light on in one of the second-floor windows, where the bride's father stayed forever, never seeing the end of the celebration he had created. Tragedy on the terrace in Charleston. June 2014 in Charleston, South Carolina, was full of the scent of blooming magnolias and a humid sea breeze. Charleston is famous for its historic mansions that preserve the spirit of old America, and it was this location, Bel Air Manor, that Emily and Jason chose for their wedding. The pearl of the estate was a wide wooden terrace on the second floor, which offered a picturesque view of the garden and the river. However, behind the facade of historical grandeur and a fresh coat of white paint was a structural decay that made the structure a death trap. The main organizer of the festive mood was 24-year-old Chloe Bennett, the bride's best friend and maid of honor. Chloe was an energetic girl who wanted every moment of the day to be captured perfectly. Around 1730, as the sun began to slant toward the horizon, creating the perfect lighting, Chloe suggested taking a large group photo of all of her closest friends and family. "Everyone to the terrace," she exclaimed, gathering about 30 people around her. The estate's terrace was built in the late 19th century. Despite regular cosmetic renovations, the main support beams had been exposed to Charleston's high humidity and termites for decades, which had eaten away at the wood from the inside, leaving only a thin outer shell. The estate's owners, trying to save money on major repairs, simply painted over the cracks. When 30 adults in festive clothes came out onto the terrace and grouped in the center for a photo, the weight per square meter exceeded the critical mark several times. A wedding photographer standing on the lawn below captured the moment with his camera. The picture, which would later become the main evidence in court, shows the smiling faces of the guests a second before the disaster. But if you look closely at the bottom of the frame, you can see how the main support beam has already begun to deviate from the wall. A sudden loud crack, like a gunshot, broke the silence of the garden. Over the next 2 seconds, the central section of the terrace simply disappeared, plunging downward. People flew from a 3-meter height. Most of the guests fell to the soft grass, suffering broken limbs and bruises, but Chloe Bennett was in the most unfortunate place. She was standing right next to the parapet, and when the structure collapsed, she flew backwards directly onto the concrete stairs leading to the basement. A heavy oak railing that had come off with the floor fell from above, crushing her with its weight. The resulting chaos was immense. The screams of the injured mingled with the sound of the wood continuing to fall. The groom and other guests rushed to clear the rubble, trying to get Chloe out. When they finally pulled her out, she was unconscious. The impact on the concrete edge of the step caused an instantaneous fracture of the base of her skull and neck vertebrae. Despite the fact that a paramedic was among the guests and immediately began to provide assistance, the injuries were incompatible with life. Chloe Bennett died in the intensive care unit of a local hospital 2 hours later, without regaining consciousness. The wedding she had so carefully planned ended with the police sealing the estate. The owners of Bel Air were later charged with criminal negligence, as an examination showed that the terrace had been unfit for use for 5 years before the incident. Chloe's last photo, of her laughing while holding a glass of champagne on the same terrace moments before the collapse, was a grim reminder that sometimes the invisible rot beneath our feet can destroy lives faster than any storm. Fire Trap in Belo Horizonte, May, in the Brazilian city of Belo Horizonte, is a time of lavish weddings. For 26-year-old Gabriela and Tiago, this month was supposed to be the beginning of a fairy tale. They rented the prestigious Palacio de Cristal, a venue known for its high ceilings decorated with kilometers of synthetic fabric. However, these decorations became the fuel for one of the fastest tragedies ever captured on video. The guest of honor was 82-year-old Dona Maria, the bride's grandmother. She was the family's guardian angel and moved slowly due to her advanced age. Her table was set up in a secluded corner next to lush, decorative curtains. Around 10:30 p.m., during the newlyweds' first dance, the organizers launched a surprise: cold fountains. Wanting to save money, they purchased uncertified pyrotechnics. Instead of the safe 2 meters, one of the devices released a column of sparks straight into the ceiling. The synthetic fabric caught fire instantly. The fire ran through the hall at the speed of a train, and hot plastic began to drip on the guests' heads in a rain of fire. The lights went out in the hall, leaving hundreds of people in complete darkness and suffocating smoke. Panic set in instantly. People rushed to the main exit, as the emergency exit was blocked by wedding equipment. In this stampede, Donna Maria was trapped. Because of her age, she could not resist the crowd that was hysterically making its way to the door. In addition, the burning of synthetics released thick, toxic smoke containing cyanide. Just 2 breaths were enough to make her lose consciousness. Donna Maria collapsed at her table, suffocating within minutes. When the firefighters arrived, they found the room completely burned out. Donna Maria's body was found just 5 meters from the blocked exit. One of the videos on the guest's phone captured the moment. The happy newlyweds were dancing, and behind them a thin stream of fire was rapidly rising to the ceiling. This video became the main evidence in the trial against the owners of the hall. But for Gabriela, it will forever remain a testament to how her party became a death trap for her dearest person. The Miami Screw Incident. May 2015 in Miami Beach is a time of endless parties, neon lights, and ultra-high humidity. For 24-year-old Megan Wright, who was chosen as the head maid of honor at her sister's wedding, this day was supposed to be a triumph of glamour. The wedding took place aboard a 45-meter private yacht, the Midnight Star, which was slowly drifting along the Florida coast. The atmosphere was electrifying. Expensive alcohol, loud house music, and hundreds of lights reflecting in the dark ocean water. Megan was the life of the party. In her champagne-colored silk dress, she was constantly in the center of attention, creating content for social media and cheering on the guests. Around 2 in the morning, the yacht was in motion, returning to port. Most of the guests gathered at the stern, the back of the vessel, where an open dance area was set up. Due to the specifics of the wedding decor, additional cables for neon lighting were stretched along the sides, which sometimes created dangerous obstacles. The tragedy occurred the moment Megan, holding her phone in one hand and a glass in the other, tried to take the perfect selfie video against the backdrop of the Miami night skyline. She stepped back to get a better angle, and her heel got caught in the loop of a loose lighting cable. She lost her balance and tripped over a low safety rail, which had been lowered in this part of the ship for easy mooring. Megan fell overboard in complete darkness. The problem was that the ship continued to move at high speed. The girl fell not just into the water, but into the zone of a powerful swirl created by the yacht's propellers. Within 2 seconds, she was dragged directly under the stern, where the steel blades of the engines with a capacity of thousands of horsepower were working. The music on deck was so loud that only a few guests standing nearby heard the splash and a short, cut-off scream. The yacht's CCTV cameras captured a terrifying scene. A bright red spot appeared for a moment astern, amidst the white foam from the propellers, and then instantly dissolved into the dark ocean. The captain stopped the engines only 3 minutes later, when the guests panicked. However, in the night ocean, it was impossible to find the person who had fallen under the propellers. Megan's body was found only the next day by the Coast Guard. The injuries from the blade's impacts left her no chance of survival in the first second of contact. The wedding ended at the port, where detectives and psychologists were waiting for the guests instead of fireworks. The investigation showed that the side was lowered in violation of safety rules, and alcohol only accelerated the chain of fatal decisions. The last video on Megan's phone captured the night sky suddenly turning upside down and the sound of water that forever swallowed up the laughter of that evening. A deadly angle on Amalfi. October 2015 on the Amalfi coast in Italy was a time of golden autumn. The town of Ravello, located on high cliffs above the Tyrrhenian Sea, is considered one of the most romantic locations in the world. It was here, on the terrace of an old villa, that the wedding of Giulia and Alessandro took place. However, the main character of this story was 38-year-old Marco Rossi, one of the most sought-after wedding photographers in Europe. Marco was famous for his perfectionism and passion for extreme angles that made his pictures look like shots from Hollywood movies. Around 18, the golden hour began, a short period of time before sunset when the light becomes soft and warm. Marco led the newlyweds to a narrow stone path that protruded directly over the abyss. The depth below them was 50 meters, with only sharp rocks and the angry sea below. Marco wanted to make his signature shot, the newlyweds against the endless horizon. The photographer worked in a state of complete creative trance. He looked exclusively through the lens of his heavy camera, which completely limited his peripheral vision. In order to capture more space in the frame, Marco began to slowly step back. The guests watched the process with fascination, not realizing that the photographer was approaching the brink of death. The tragedy happened instantly. Marco took the last step back, hoping for support. However, there was no stone fence in this part of the terrace. It had been blown away by a storm last year, and the villa owners had only temporarily covered the area with a thick ornamental bush that could not support the weight of a person. Mark's leg found no support. A wedding video shot by an assistant from a different angle captured the horrific scene. Marco Rossi simply disappears from the frame, as if he had been pulled down. The bride covered her face with her hands, and the guests froze in mute shock. The only sound was the dull thud of the equipment against the stones deep below. She died instantly from multiple injuries. When the rescuers got to the body, they found Mark's camera. The memory card was still intact. The last shot, taken a split second before the fall, was perfect, smiling newlyweds in the rays of the sunset. This shot became his posthumous masterpiece, and the wedding in Ravello will forever remain in the police archives as proof that sometimes the pursuit of the perfect shot costs lives. A wedding is an attempt of the human heart to stop time and make a moment of happiness eternal. We decorate the halls with lights and make vows, believing that they will last forever. But sometimes fate decides otherwise, turning the last dance into eternal peace and the white veil into a symbol of unfulfilled hopes. Where a long journey was supposed to begin, only silence remained, frozen in the camera lenses. These stories remind us that life is not only about grandiose plans, but also about every fragile second we live here and now. After all, sometimes the line between a happy yes and eternal silence is thinner than a flower petal in a wedding bouquet.